I'm not going to talk.
All right, how's it going? I'll just do the introduction right now. We got Connor.
How's it going?
Kyle.
Hey.
Mandy.
Hello.
And I'm Phil. Today, a little podcast is about language barriers. I'm going to read you our little article, and then we're just going to go off that and go off on our little tangent. It'll be good.
Wonderful.
We'll get there.
All right, so for the article, it's language management in international business, implementation of strategies to bridge linguistic and cultural barriers. So it says good communication is indispensable when doing business in the 21st century. It is connected to the fact that most corporations operate worldwide. Multi-international companies can encounter many problems when maintaining its global coordination, then often face linguistic and cultural differences. Undermining language management significance has a direct impact on business. All multi-international companies need to apply solutions to the problem of language barriers and their communication weakness. Although there is a wide range of different strategies that can be adopted by corporations to enhance business performance on a global market, many companies are not fully aware and consider those strategies unimportant, unfortunately.
It's interesting because I think of makes me think of marketing, especially American companies marketing internationally and trying to understand kind of the minds of foreign countries, foreign people. And how can we sell them on it? How can we? Because they tick differently than Americans tick. I don't know if that's what the article's about, but that's what it makes me think of.
Yeah, you would have to know how to intrigue the buyer market in that country.
Right.
Well, I think that is a big issue because was it with the NBA or something like that with the riots in China? Some the NBA stars were saying we support Hong Kong or whatever. They had to shut them down off on Twitter.
Really?
Because, the NBA is I think it's the NBA. I want to say it's the NBA, but I might be wrong. It might be something else. But yeah, they weren't allowed to support anything like that because it was they have a big, a lot of viewers in China. And then China was threatening to shut it down and all right, well, no more basketball.
Wow.
And so it's just so it's they got to be careful. So it's kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it's a trip that companies have to be so careful about what's going on and kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, politically conscious and aware of a lot more than just their own product and what they're trying to push.
Yeah, and their
because it affects everything. Affects the economy.
You could offend them with one easy slogan that you think is going to sell it. Could highly offend them.
Right.
Well, sounds good. We still got some of that article right here. It's internal communication. This one is effective internal communication deals with the exchange of information within an organization to create a shared understanding that drives the behaviors and actions needed to move the business forward. All the companies which realize the importance of internal communication seek to obtain the best method to ensure an effective sharing of information. Corporations have been aware that their effectiveness will increase using internal communication, which is the gate for a successful business.
Internal communication, that's just people talking within the company, employees talking to managers and stuff? Is that what
basically, just internally into that certain business or corporation.
So it sounds like kind of solidarity, that everybody's on the same page with what the company's about, that we have a message, and that everyone subscribes to that message,
Yeah, but it would be important to understand another culture while you're having that message if you're trying to be good about having an inclusive company, but really you're excluding one culture by the way you run things if you don't recognize their culture differences.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we'll move on. Do you guys want to start doing the chapters?
Yeah, we can open it up.
All right.
I just wanted to touch, too, before we really got into each individual section.
Yeah.
Because our section is language. I don't know if we covered that, but we're doing language, and it opens up with the story of Babel, the Tower of Babel. I'm sure most people know the story, but everyone spoke the same language and worked together, and they tried to build a tower to reach the heavens. I like this quote in here. It said, "The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." So it just kind of highlights the importance of language, that if we can communicate and work together, nothing's impossible. That's kind of just an opener for this chapter, language. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say on that, but...
No, it's much true. What we were saying about another country, another place on Earth, and you're doing business or you're having any kind of communication with them, once you can communicate with them either in their language or your language, but understanding how to do it properly then you could do amazing things if you got all the offenses and the rudeness out of the
Right,
way.
right.
You could just work on your problems.
Yeah, I guess that works also into what we're going into is understandings and misunderstandings.
Right, right. So the basic breakdown for this section, the understandings and misunderstandings, is the rules that we use, essentially the rules that we use to understand each other and some of the pitfalls, problems that we run into if we misuse these rules or we're not using the same set of rules. Kind of a quote to open this up from the book, that most people vastly overestimate how well their explanations get through and how well they understand each other.
That's like a perfect representation for this podcast.
Yeah.
So I think it's going great.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, so the basic, most fundamental rules that we follow would be semantic rules. And semantic rules are essentially, they explain the meaning, the shared meaning that we attach to words and symbols. When we talk about symbols, typically we're talking about words, words as shapes on paper and noises that we make with our mouths. They're very, kind of dead unless we give them life, unless we give them meaning. And I repeat here, some of the misunderstandings occur when we prescribe different meanings to the same word or the same symbol. Like an example I have here is bird. I say bird, I make a noise with my mouth, and we all know what I mean. But it's a lot different if I give you the bird or if I show you my bird. Like it's, there's different meanings here, and a lot of it's contextual.
Or the
Yeah.
shit's
So,
for the birds.
It's for the birds, like we're not actually talking about birds, we're talking about something else.
Compared to the feather.
That's pretty interesting.
So this is basically, semantic rules is the symbols, the words themselves, what they mean. At a little bit bigger level, we go into syntactic rules, which is essentially grammatical rules that we follow. And I know for myself, I feel like if you don't study English, if you don't take English classes, a lot of this is just kind of intuitive. You just know, but you don't realize why you know.
Or come from a place where you don't realize you don't know and you've spoken English your whole life. So people that know it, they don't realize how they know it.
Right,
And they assume that everybody else knows it.
right.
And then if you're from a different walk of life, you have no idea. But you think you know. Therein lies the misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Because it was used different where you're from.
Right. Right, a lot of that is culturally based, or in our own little pockets within this culture. The way we grew up, we understood it a certain way, and that's why I think college is so cool, because you get all these people together and then kind of unify them. It's kind of like that Tower of Babel story where we're all building towards something higher, trying to understand each other.
Yeah, but does that also go in? Because, when you were going to high school and stuff, and it's kind of the same in college too, even in also the military, when I was in, certain groups will hang out with their own. We had Filipinos, we call them the Filipino Mafia in the Navy, and, they all hung out together, and they were just, so, you have just certain groups hang out with each other, and it's still kind of crazy that happens now. It's because I guess just being comfortable,
Right.
Yeah, it's important to feel like you're a part of your group.
Right.
Familiar with it.
Yeah, back to these syntactical rules. The way I understand it most, I think a lot of people have heard this example of let's eat grandma, as opposed to let's eat, grandma. So it's the same set of words, the same set of symbols has two different meanings based on a simple comma, simple grammatical rules. Yeah, like I was saying, if you're an English speaker, if you primarily speak, you don't do a lot of writing. It's just kind of intuitive. But you don't understand why you know. At an even more we were talking about these cultural-based meanings. This is kind of like pragmatic rules. It all comes down to context. Pragmatic rules are the way that we interpret a message based on our perception, based on our culture, based on the context of the situation. Essentially, we agree on the meaning of certain phrases as a culture or within individual relationships. Within individual relationships, it's like an inside joke. I can say something to someone and they just know what I mean, but to an outside observer, it makes no sense. It's that kind of deeper level of understanding, deper level of communication.
It's like that one time at band camp. Everybody
Exactly.
that's
Everybody
seen the
knows.
movie
Everybody knows.
knows. If you haven't seen the movie, it's just
Yeah.
what happened at band camp. But if you've seen the movie, you know.
Yeah, that's a really good example.
Well, I like the example in the book where it says most people in North America know if somebody comes up to you and says, "How's it going?" it's a greeting. Like, you don't need to respond.
Right. They don't actually want to know.
Yeah, like, you know, or like, what's up, dude? Like, you know, like, yeah, just all that kind of stuff. Because I never really thought about it until I was reading that from like a alien perspective. Like, it'd be like, oh, with all these questions and stuff like that. Like,
Because essentially you say, how's it going? You're saying hello.
Yeah.
You don't want to know
Yeah.
what this person's been up to. You don't want...
And it's a little bit off topic, but I think too, if you come from another language and their vocabulary is smaller, then they only have one word for floor, ground. All of that only has one word, and then they come to speak English, and there's 5 different ways. There's carpet, there's like, so they almost aren't. If you don't take that into consideration, then they don't understand slang.
Right.
How's it going? They just don't understand that. You just totally blew their mind with you're using all those words wrong.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I know, like, in Spanish, like, you answer the phone, you say bien. That means good. You don't answer in English, you don't say good.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be weird. It's that culturally based meaning, you know?
I know we were talking about it last night, but this part at the end of that, the verbal jousting, I wanted to touch on that because I really like that idea of kind of friends just kind of talking trash on each other. And from like an outside point of view, like, you know, like me and Phil screaming at each other while we're in the shop, like, man, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
You know, and people are like, well, what the hell is going on here? But then it's just like, we're best friends. And it's just like, you shitbag motherfucker, like, hey. Like,
Yeah, but in that context, it's friendly, you know? It's
because
we have an understanding.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, I don't like you. That's
I know. I wouldn't like me either, dude.
But me and my mom, we were just on the phone. We were talking about that because my aunt said something, and then, you know, my mom took it the wrong. Not my mom took it the wrong way, but like my mom didn't like it. But then we were talking about like, but if I had said that, like, it would have been different because it's like I know. Like, because what the situation was like my aunt was saying, like, to this little girl, like, oh, like, here's, you know, Ashley, she loves children or something like that. And then as a joke, I don't know if it were me doing it, and she's telling me, like, this little story, like a 5-year-old telling me a story going on forever about nothing. I'm like, hey, you know who would really love this story is my mom. Like, you got to listen to this. Like, all right, see you later. Like, you know, because then it's cool because it's like, I don't know, it's like a different situation. So it depends on, like, who says it or how they say it.
Exactly.
And I think that's, like, I don't know how things are funny. Like, just context and stuff like that.
yeah, humor plays into that a lot.
You also have a good sense of humor too. Not some people just don't have that. It's hard,
Yeah.
you know, for them to communicate like that.
Yeah, because you could say something that's totally not funny, but then it's hilarious because of the time or how you said it and when you said it. Like,
Comedic timing.
brother.
Yeah. So a couple more just kind of key terms we should get through for this chapter. Equivocation is one of them. And the way I came to understand this is...
That's a 50-cent word.
Is that word?
Yeah, it's a big word.
Yeah. Equivocation, equivocal language, yeah. Basically, it's pretty ambiguous. It could have more than one meaning. And a lot of these, I had a hard time, like, really putting them in their box because it seemed like they bled together, like, with abstraction. You know, abstraction could be taken multiple ways.
Yeah.
What is
And
abstract?
so abstraction is very similar, being very vague in nature. So using blanket statements or kind of walking on eggshells. You're not saying exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
You know, and the example they use in here is like a boss talking to an employee. Basically, the most abstract, the most vague he could be in this example is you need to have a better attitude. Well, what does that mean? I need to have a better attitude. Well, what he's trying to say is you need to be more positive. You need to be more positive. Okay, well, how do I be more positive? He really means you need to complain less. But even more than that, that's really what he wants. He wants you to complain less, but even more specific, he wants you to complain less about working too hard. That's what he's upset with.
Yeah.
But it's not just working too hard. You need to complain less about working overtime on the weekends. That's what I'm upset about. It's that thing in specific. But then I say you need to have a better attitude. He can take that any which way. You know, you're not saying exactly what you mean. And I think sometimes it comes off as offensive, saying exactly what you mean. So we use these kind of blanket, abstract statements to, like I said, walking on eggshells in conversations. You don't want to upset the other person. You want to just feel like you were understood rather than know that you were understood.
Wouldn't that be like considered beating around the bush?
Yeah,
Kinda?
exactly.
It
Beating
is.
around the bush.
It is.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when I'm at work, and you guys will do this too whenever you're in the field, and just, I think it's the nowadays how bosses will come up to you. They kind of just pussyfoot around stuff.
Right.
But I usually tell the boss, dude, if I messed up, just tell me. I don't care. You know, you can just be, yo, dude, you fucked up. I'm still going to be okay with it, but that's also me. Not a lot of people can handle failure that, you know, if they did mess up or not.
Right.
It's kind of greasy.
Yeah. Gotta get some thick skin. So, and one last key term I want to touch on was relative language, relative words. And this is kind of under the umbrella of semantic rules, where we derive meaning from certain symbols. It's basically just, it seems like it has a lot to do with adjectives. So you're saying, like, this is taking too long, like long compared to what?
This one I have a lot of problem with in my everyday life, where people will, like Phil said, beat around the bush, and I'm direct. Tell me exactly what you want. It won't hurt my feelings. Just tell me what you want, and I'll say no if I don't want to do it.
Right.
A lot. And I do this with my kids. Before we even start the ice cream discussion of can I have more or any of that, I'm like, who wants too much?
Yeah, I love
Like, I start with that, and when they ask for more, you've already had too much.
Yeah.
Like, I just start like that. But they're little people. But in the real world, like, if you ask for a lot of something and I come with what I think is a lot and I look stupid, like, dude, I just meant like 3.
Yeah.
Like, that I don't, and it can go like even in a more embarrassing situation or lead into even arguments in my life. So that's what I would
And
think.
it could be a serious situation because they
Yes.
talk about, you know, in the medical field, like how much pain are you in? Pain is a
Yes.
relative term. So, like, I'm doing all right. Somebody that has a high pain tolerance, but they're in a lot of pain and they don't understand. And they've found, and I've been in the hospital and surgery, and they use this 1 through 10 scale. How much pain are you in?
Yeah, they use that with my daughter has to go to the hospital all the time, and that they ask her questions when she was 6, she would be like, my leg hurt from like her ankle to her hip. And then they started teaching her the number scale when she was about 8, like the most pain you've ever felt.
Right.
And then happy.
Yeah, because you could say I'm in a lot of pain. Like, what does that mean? Did you get broken up with, or like
Your lot's not my lot.
You break your back. So 1 through 10, everybody knows what a 7 is. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. I think like the most painful thing that I ever experienced was getting my arm rebroken. Because after I was reading that part, I
That's
was
gotta
like,
suck,
what
dude.
is, like, you know, like what is like the most painful thing? But I think it was getting my arm broken. That was crazy. I was just screaming. The doctor was like on my chest. There's a doctor sitting on top of my chest with the other doctor like on top of my arm, just jumping up and down on it.
Did they not give you
No, my
the
dad-
stuff to numb it? They numb mine whenever I snapped
no,
mine.
because I didn't have insurance. We didn't have insurance. So, it
So
was
great.
ghetto, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
some dude breaking
Just
your
wait,
arm.
wait on the
It was
curb. We'll
fucking
be out there
horrible.
with a hammer.
It was crazy, dude. Yeah, because it was like the dude was like holding my face down with like his knees on my chest and my shoulder, and then the chick was like an 85-pound chick, just kind of like, and like,
Jeez.
fuck. Dude.
No,
But it
but,
was
like-
crazy. I felt like afterwards, like I felt like I couldn't look the doctors in the eyes. Like I was
Because they betrayed you.
not like traumatized.
kidding.
But, like, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it was just like I felt like just like a victim, and like, touched me.
Violated.
Yeah, exactly. I was violated, dude. It was horrible. It was so scary, dude.
No, because I was going to say, you know, they didn't give you any numbing stuff. Well, they
Yeah.
did me, and it didn't help fucking
not?
nothing,
I couldn't
dude.
imagine.
It
I
still
feel-
hurt. I was
yeah.
screaming.
Yeah.
You know,
I was trying to play it cool and just fucking like, oh yeah, do it, dude. What is
did they put the, did they put those tongue things in your mouth?
No,
They
it
did
was
me.
just
They had to
kinda-
put them. They had to stack them like 5 high, and they put them in my mouth so I wouldn't bite
you
my
from
tongue
biting your
off.
tongue?
Yeah.
I imagine like what it sounded like in the next doctor's office over. For like the other patient, like,
Is
oh
he
my
giving
god,
birth in there?
am I next?
Oh, yeah.
I know. But that is, yeah, I mean, it's a super helpful thing in that relative sense of, because now I always will know, like, okay, well, this isn't quite as much as getting my arm broken, but at the same time, this isn't like getting my, you know, this is a little bit more than stubbing my toe. Maybe not quite stepping on a Lego, but somewhere in between.
Yes,
You know?
definitely.
And I lied. There is one more key term, and this is.
Oh, man,
I
come
know.
on,
It's,
dude.
it's a big chapter. Static evaluations, and this is basically the false pretense of that people don't change. So your evaluation of someone that they're lazy or that they're a certain way, it can change over time because people change, and getting kind of stuck thinking things are a certain way. Yeah, essentially that people are consistent and unchanging. But that's not true. People change every day, and our evaluations of them, the way they fit into our perceptions, has to change with their own evolution.
So you're saying like when you said getting stuck in a certain mind frame, you think? Or
Right.
You're talking about people that are just ignorant, you know?
Well, calling someone ignorant, what if they change? What if they're making an active effort to go outside of their bubble, but you have this perception of them as ignorant? It's going to say, and this is what static valuation is saying
Right.
that they're ignorant, that they're not going to change, that they're an ignorant person. That's who they are at their core, rather than the things they do are ignorant. But if they change the things they do, if they change the way they see the world,
Okay.
then we should reevaluate the way we see them.
Exactly.
Or
No, it
the
makes sense.
language we use when we describe them.
Right.
What was that quote from Austin Powers, like his dad? There's two things I hate most in this world. Is intolerance for people's culture and the Dutch.
It's just something he
It's an
took from when he was a kid, you know. I think the key is exposure.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all I got for my little section there. I'll pass the torch.
That's great.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we'll go into the impact of language.
Alrighty, and then that'll be me.